All right, when we're talking about the largest cities in the state of Colorado, you got two: Denver, number one, which is obvious, and number two, Colorado Springs.
And there's so many things that set these two cities apart. And today we're going to be talking about some of those major differences so that you can decide between Denver and Colorado Springs which one's best for you.
All right, let's go. All right, welcome to the channel. If this is your first time watching, we are your Colorado real estate family, Pete and Chelsea Sweeney, and we always bring you the good, the bad, sometimes inappropriate in regards to Denver and all of its surrounding cities. Also, licensed real estate agent here, helping with all of your purchases in Denver and all around Colorado.
Yes, so if you're interested in what it looks like to move to Colorado, Denver, or any of the surrounding cities, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell because we are the people who are going to keep you up to date with all the most recent facts about moving to Colorado.
And also, give us a ring or a text on that phone number we're going to put in right below. You're going to get us and us only, and majority of the time, it's Chelsea. So she has a nicer voice to talk to on the phone anyways. Let's go ahead and check out these two great cities from the sky's view. Be right back. So the best way to start out this video is to really go over the most obvious of the size of the two cities, the population.
Yeah, so Colorado Springs is about 500,000 as far as population goes. And what's Denver now?
So Denver, so here's the thing, because I know if you Google and stuff like that, you're going to look up Denver and it's going to pop up Denver Metro, which is closer to 3 mil. Denver, we're talking about the city of Denver, Denver proper. You're looking at probably about 750,000, and that's going up quite a bit. But yeah, like I said, I mean, for any of you out there doing your Google search, like what size is Denver? It's going to pop up like right around 3 mil.
Well, and this is the second most populated, right? So obviously, like it's pretty close, right? It's about 200 or 150 difference.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's
not
definitely
that different, which is crazy because Colorado Springs used to be very small. I mean, this okay, for instance, just an example. In 2014, the highway going to Colorado Springs, I-25, or Made Highway going north and south, was moved or converted from a 4-lane to a 6-lane. Now it's an 8-lane highway. So just to kind of show you, like, not only the access, but the growth going to Colorado Springs, it has changed quite a bit.
Well, and we felt it quite a bit, too, going down there. The constant road construction, it's just been like, oh my gosh, it's been like endless all the time. So,
but it's good now, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Well, I mean, there's still some parts like in between Castle Rock and Colorado Springs that the stretch is a little bit congested with that construction, but it will be nice when it's done. It will be.
We just went down there for a client on Sunday, and it was pretty smooth rolling all the way down, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, definitely. So the other differences is your sports. Obviously, Denver, it's the capital of the state of Colorado. You're gonna have your professional sports, so your Broncos, your Rockies, your Mammoth, your I always forget the damn Nuggets.
Nuggets.
I mean, you're gonna have all those professional sports. Down in the Springs, guess what? They have the Air Force Academy, so you get to watch all those Air Force games, which honestly, I like those more than the professional sport. There's so much. It's just so much fun, like going down there. Great environment. I haven't been to one in a couple years. The last time I was there, it was like they're handing out free beers, free Chipotle, and I was like, holy crap, free, because you can't drink in the game.
Right.
And so you're pretty much tailgating outside, and then you got to go in and, not be able to buy
We've been talking so much about trying to take Kingston to the Air Force because they fly over, obviously, during
Their
the
flyover
games.
blows the Broncos away. It is like when you have the Air Force Academy, you're like, yeah, we got all the goods on our end. So.
Yeah, we want to take our son there so bad because we think not only would he like the game, but also love the flyover up there. Because,
He's huge into planes and stuff, so he's like,
So you have your military base, obviously, which is called
Fort Carson.
Fort
Carson, which actually, when I came back from Iraq, we went, Fort Hood to kind of do our, I forget what it was called. Anyways, from Fort Hood, then we came to Fort Carson. That's where we were kind of rehabilitated back into the regular life side of things. And it's a large base. It's one of the largest bases in the United States land-wise, how much land it has. But they have some great ranges there and stuff. Like military families, Colorado Springs has always been known for two things. So your military families, and it's been a pretty hardcore Christian area as well, too.
True.
So there's a lot of like mega churches down there. So it's something to kind of really consider. But these last few years, it has been kind of getting away from that a little bit because it's become so popular to move into for anyone from outside of Colorado.
That's funny. Now that you just talked about the churches, I wanted to put in that interesting fact about the cathedral or
the church,
the cadet
downtown.
chapel.
Yeah.
So just because I was trying to find some really fun, interesting facts for people out there, and I was like looking at some things I might not know, and I found something about the it's called the cadet chapel.
Oh, okay.
And it is actually now like one of the most like well-known chapels down in downtown Colorado Springs, and it's so big and it has so many different entrances that it can actually hold 5 different religious services all at one time. So I think it's funny that you talked that, because I was like, oh yeah, that was such an interesting fact. And it's beautiful building. Like it's absolutely beautiful. It's like one of the big like focal points of some of the downtown.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Anyways, interesting fact.
So my favorite thing, just kind of go on a side note about Colorado Springs, is where Nikola Tesla kind of did a lot of experiments, and I'm a huge fan of Nikola Tesla, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, that's one of my favorite things.
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
See, sometimes you learn things about Peter that I'm also just learning about Peter, which is really hard because we've been together for what? Well, I guess it depends on who you ask. I would say like 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
Okay, back to it.
Yeah, let's back in.
All right, so recreation. Let's talk a little bit about recreation, because this is one thing that I think differs between Denver and Fort Collins.
Yeah,
Fort Collins. I was just in Fort Collins.
I mean, every time we talk about Denver, whenever you guys are moving into Denver and the lifestyles of Denver, we always talk about the mountains, right? Colorado Springs is like that on steroids, because Denver, you have to take a 30-minute trip over to the mountains, where Colorado Springs are, boom, they're right in your face.
Yeah.
So it's like
on both sides, kind of like depending on where you're
well,
at.
it's more of like a cup.
Yes.
So it's like on the west side, it kind of like cups you a little bit,
Yes.
you know, because the east you got all the plains. But
Yes.
And then it's like they got Pikes Peak there, you know, one of those 14ers, and it's like it's amazing for any outdoors enthusiasts. If you drive a Jeep, guess what? There's like this huge like Jeep club down there. Like everyone's super proud about their lifted Jeep. Who's lifted higher? Who's got the best accessories?
Definitely.
And so Colorado Springs is the epitome of like your Colorado lifestyle for a large city.
Pikes Peak, right? So Pikes Peak has a lot of interesting facts. It was one of the, like, they found gold there, and so it became like, you know, had a bunch of nicknames around, you know, the millionaires of blah blah blah, and so that was like a big thing about Pikes Peak. But also America the Beautiful. So it was actually, the song was written, or it was from a poem, but this gal wrote from the poem. If you know who her name is, I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but she wrote a poem about her views from Pikes Peak, and that's now what leads into America the Beautiful.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know. I was like so amazed by such awesome facts of Colorado Springs. Like they're so wonderful.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the biggest thing. Is like if you're trying to choose between Colorado Springs and Denver, number one deciding factor is probably gonna be a job, where your job's at, or if you're remote, if your job's located in Colorado Springs, Denver. But I mean, like outdoor lifestyle, like I said, if you are remote or if you can have your job located in Colorado Springs, that is somewhere you want to be, because it's like those activities and everything it's embedded in the veins of Colorado Springs, and so that's huge.
It's absolutely beautiful because of the mountains and how close the foothills are and all of that. It's so stunning.
Yep. All right,
Okay,
cool. So what's another thing? What's another thing that we're going to compare the two?
So
to Denver and
differences. We're
Springs?
going to do the median income, because we always talk about that when we're trying to compare cities. So median income in Colorado Springs is about $65,000 salary, and then in Denver it's going to be about $69,000. So
and it's all dependent on who you. I mean, God,
There's
I
so
think that was
many-
World Review where we looked that up, you know. And also, like I said, Denver. Anytime you try to look up the city of Denver, it's always meshed in with Denver Metro, and so
Right.
the
It gets a
stats
little
are always
confusing.
all over. But I mean, like I said, so it's very similar. I mean, 68,000 for your income isn't too bad in regards to Colorado Springs and Denver. So your median household. We gotta make sure we say
Median
that's household. That's not individual. So
Yes.
median household income.
yeah,
Yep.
65 for Colorado Springs. So
Yep.
lower than Denver. Okay, so that kind of leads us into, I think, one of the largest topics about the big comparison between Denver and Colorado Springs, and that's going to be talking about real estate.
The real estate. All right, so here's the biggest thing. It's like how much am I going to spend buying a house in Denver as opposed to Colorado Springs. And so in Denver, we've talked about this, God, so many times. Median price point obviously changes every single month that we do this, because we projected back in the last 12 months, and we're talking
Always.
about your median sales price. I'm not talking about your median home value, because I think that you need to know what you're going to be purchasing a house for, not what the assessor tells us it's worth, right? And so in Denver, it's right at 565. You know, okay, cool. And actually, that's been down a little bit since like last year. Last year, it was almost topped out at 6. That's amazing. But then Colorado Springs, if you want to buy a house there, your median household sales price $430. So
$430.
That's a
awesome.
good. You know, what is that? $130,000 cheaper. You know, and they have some great houses down there. Colorado Springs also, you're going to find a lot more newer houses, because it hasn't been as developed as Denver is, since you have that large growth. you're going to have a lot of newer areas.
Yeah, so one thing too that we find really interesting is actually Colorado Springs kind of blows Denver out of the water as far as some of the appreciation.
Oh, yeah.
And so, we'll try to put some links and stuff or some reference for you as far as looking at different zip codes and the home appreciation, because it has been skyrocketing in Colorado Springs.
Yeah. In fact, it's been up 16.2% from November 2020 to November 2021. Denver, it was at 8%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something to be said about these outlying areas. So we always talk about like Fort Collins too is another city we really hit a lot. These cities that are outside of Denver, and it's because Denver is growing so big, people are like, where else can I move outside of Denver but still have access to Denver, right? I still want to be able to take advantage. I want my cake and I want to eat it too. So
how far, for people who are not from here, how far of a drive is Colorado Springs to Denver?
So you're looking at, it depends on traffic. Construction.
Traffic.
I'd say if you're cruising, you could easily get there a little bit over an hour. But I mean, if you got some traffic, you're looking at an hour and a half.
Hour and 45 minutes with traffic.
If it's my sister, I mean, she's freaking going 90 down the highway. So
I know.
Look at the road, Bo. Look at the road.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Is it something that you're going to be wanting me to do every single day? I mean, I wouldn't, but it is still, you still have access to it, and you wouldn't really need to unless you're traveling for a job or something. But I would say that most people who are working in Colorado Springs live in Colorado Springs, and vice versa.
Exactly. It's like people love having the activities that Denver has, but actually being in downtown, we've seen that it kind of drop off a little bit, the interest in moving into actual downtown.
Yeah. Oh, I have a good one I just thought about. I'm sorry to cut you off. Talk about how the traffic was when we were up there for a client the other day. The traffic in Colorado Springs.
I don't remember.
What? Oh my gosh, the traffic was lovely.
Oh, you mean how it was like non-existent?
There was like no traffic.
Well, I mean, I hate to say it, but it was Sunday and it was kind of a church day.
Oh, is that you think what it was?
I don't know.
I think generally speaking, Colorado Springs has much better traffic.
We're getting some video of downtown, and it was almost non-existent. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and maybe it was because it was Sunday, but it definitely is, generally speaking, a lot less traffic in Colorado Springs than Denver. So
that's true. Yeah.
I mean, most people in Denver, they just kind of get used to it, and it flows. So it's not, and there are some times where it's lighter versus not. But I think Colorado Springs, thinking about it as a whole, definitely has a lot less traffic.
And another thing I really noticed too about being in the Springs is Denver is, since it's known so nationally as a large city, I feel like it's kind of lost its community feel in general. They always try to bring it back with these big cities, but it's always hard because it's so large. Colorado Springs has that still. Yeah. Like I was in the grocery store, and you could still drop your water bill off in the grocery store. Denver, that's like non-existent.
That's crazy. Yeah. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Oh yeah. So it's just like I said, Colorado Springs, even though it's the second largest city in Colorado, they still are able to have this community. And I don't know if it's because the military base is there or anything, because they've been able to hold on to that. But they still have been able to hold that, even though they are such a large city. So that's pretty cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Another couple of things that are, Colorado Springs is kind of known for. So Garden of the Gods.
Oh,
we already talked a little bit about Pikes Peak. But just know that even though it's not right in the city of Denver, like each of them have their own special things that they have and they're known for. And Colorado Springs has also its own things that it's known for, like the base and the Seven Falls. It's one of the only waterfalls. Yeah, Cave of the Winds. Yep. Seven Falls is one of the only waterfalls in Colorado that actually, it's in Colorado Springs, that made the National Geographic list and all of that. So like some really cool things to do in Colorado Springs just because you're not in the heart of Denver. A lot of people think that if you're not in the heart of Denver, there's not things to do. And these cities all have their own special thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, Denver, of course, you have all the museums and stuff. But it's like just the Springs, because it's in the mountains, it just
has more of the...
When it comes to that mountain life, it has more of those activities involved with the mountains. You know, you have Manitou Springs is right next to it. And then they have what is called the Manitou Climb. Is that what it's called? And so it's this awesome... Go ahead and...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know it's the step. It's kind of the same idea. It's not the amphitheater like Red Rocks, but kind of the big incline of steps.
Yeah.
That a lot of people do workout. A lot of people use that as an accomplishment to get from the top
well, I heard
to the
it's
bottom.
Extreme. Like, we haven't done it, but I heard, like, it's, like...
We just had a client and a friend go.
Yeah, it's not something that a lot of people, like, finish. I don't know.
It's like 14ers, right? Yeah. Which, I will tell you, I'm going to be honest right now. We have not done a 14er together. Have you done a 14er ever?
No.
How do you do that? Okay, so one of the Pikes Peak is out there, and it's like a big deal, like to be doing activities on Pikes Peak. But there's just so many awesome things to do over in Colorado Springs, and same with Denver. So you just got to figure out which kind of activities you're actually seeking.
Yeah, and I mean, so I'm going to narrow this all down, just make it as simplified as possible.
Yes.
Colorado Springs, much more of a mountain activity style city. Denver, you're larger, more robust, congested, I guess.
City life.
Your larger, city life. You got your bigger companies and stuff. So if you're moving into the state for Denver's companies, and it's probably in there too. But that's kind of what we're looking at. Colorado is definitely not near as congested as Denver is, but just to kind of narrow it all down and make it easy for you, it's like Colorado Springs and Denver. Yeah. Those are the biggest things right there. So yeah,
absolutely.
All right, cool.
All right, if there's different topics that you want us to cover, please let us know, especially in Colorado Springs or Denver, especially, looking at this video, if there's certain things that we didn't cover today and you have questions about, please comment below. Yep. We are answering your questions every single day, your calls, your texts, however you prefer.
All right, sounds good, guys. Well, until next time, we love you. Bye. I don't like that one.
So that you can decide between Denver and Colorado.
All right, so when you're talking about and so we're going to really dive into these two beasts in regards to bringing the good, the bad, sometimes, maybe all the time, inappropriate things in regards to Denver and its surrounding cities. And Chelsea Sweeney, and we like to bring you all the good things good.
All the good things good. You're that interested in all of those wonderful things. Did I say the subscribe thing?
No. All right, welcome to...